There are many approaches to art. You don't have to really take art lessons to be an artist. You can go to your garage, clean off an empty space, and just go at it. And you might be surprised what you come up with. Really, what it's all about is the artist showcasing their own skill and their own insight and their own bit of sincerity and poetry on a canvas or a piece of paper.
I did the mural on Yakima Street. It's 135 feet long. And I think then a lot of people have seen that. I did a big painting of from Birch Mountain, looking at the Columbia River that's hanging in the reception area of Link. A lot of people don't go to the reception area, but when they do, they get to see the whole valley, which I think is fun for them to see where they live from an artist's point of view. Well, it makes it much more memorable and gives people a sense that they're in a place that's creative.
Welcome to the NCWLIFE Magazine. I'm Kaitlin Hetterscheidt. On this episode, we're stepping inside the studios of two artists with two very different approaches to their work. So what do they have in common? Their endless dedication to their art and passion for sharing it with the world. We'll be right back.
Do I need to comb my hair or anything? Okay, just a minute. Let me make sure my phone's off. It's so embarrassing. I have to. Okay. When? Now?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. My name is Robert Wilson, and I live in East Wenatchee, and I'm an artist. I focus on contemporary art, which is art that's exploratory and developing at the moment.
From New York to Seattle, Robert is shown in galleries on the East and West Coast, but he got his start in the Midwest.
Well, I was born in Chicago and went to high school in Chicago, and that's where I ran across the Chicago Art Institute on Michigan Boulevard, and I studied there for a while. And then I moved to Seattle, went to the University of Washington, lived on a houseboat on Lake Union. I was really cool. So I feel my roots for my painting come from the Pacific Northwest. It's very important for me because I've just loved the Pacific Northwest painters since the first time I saw a Robert Graves and a Mark Tobey painting in the Chicago Art Institute. I said, this is the place to go. Now, a lot of my buddies, they studied art in high school and whatnot. They say, let's go east. They went to New York. I never hear from them again. I went west to Seattle, and I found a real exuberant creative atmosphere in Seattle at that time.
Working in abstract and conceptual art making with bold layers of color and brushwork, Robert says he remembers exploring as a young artist and discovering a new perspective on art.
I started when I was very young. My father didn't really quite understand what I was doing. In fact, he saw that I was interested in sketching the trees in the yard and the woods behind our house. And he bought me a paint by numbers set. All these little numbers, you ever seen those? And I could tell by looking at it, it was a ship, like a galleon, Spanish galleon, riding the rolling seas, the sunset behind it and the waves splashing around. And I started working. About 2 hours in, I said, I wonder what I could paint without numbers. So I mixed all the paints and I just started working. He didn't appreciate that too much, but I sure felt good about it. In the January 17th, 1960 issue of Time magazine, they had a spread, a layout of paintings by Frank Stella. And someone threw it at me and said, hey, look at this. And I opened it up and looked at that, and all of a sudden it clicked that art wasn't just about rendering or painting objects. It was about painting ideas. And then I could see art in a whole new light. And you look at painters like Edvard Munch, where he paints all this emotion. It's as deep and emotional as a Dostoevsky novel. And painters exploring these various human ideas. And that made me very excited, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to explore, I wanted to come up with ideas that were beautiful, that were thoughtful, that meant something. I really look at the human race as there's just one culture, the human culture. We all participated, and we have since at the beginning of time. We all sing, we all dance, we all make poetry. We all run around in circles, we make masks, we do everything. And this is of the human culture. An artist is a part of that human culture. And when the civilizations and the politicians and the educational institutions all fade away, what's left? The art and the architecture of the people that created things. And that's what I want to be a part of, and that's what motivates me, is to explore these various ideas.
If you've seen the TV series The Office, then you know Robert's son, Rainn Wilson, who plays Dwight. Robert says art was a major influence in their household.
I had the walls of our house plastered with paintings. One time he looked at that, my son was about 7 or 8 at the time, and he says, "Papa," he says, "why can't you paint like everyone else's dad?" And I didn't know anyone else's dad painted, but we'd go to gallery openings together, museums, and later on when we traveled to different cities, we'd always hit all the museums as much as we could, and the art galleries. Los Angeles, he lives outside of Los Angeles, is very rich in some wonderful museums, and British Columbia, and wherever you go. He's always inspired me. He's always supported me, encouraged me, and so in that sense we have a very close relationship. And then when he took up an interest in acting, of course I encouraged him. I don't want to say we have too many engineers in the world, but you need a balance. We need artists as well as engineers. We got to go to the moon, but at the same time we need someone to paint a picture of the moon. And so I encouraged him in his acting and in his art.
Spending time living and working in New York, Robert says the shadows and structure infused into his work. His work shifted, he says, and Wenatchee gave him his color when he moved here.
It was like stepping into a world of light. It was bright, cheerful, people were friendly, made a lot of friends, and there's some very good artists in Wenatchee. They inspire me. I hope to some degree I inspire some of them. Robert Graves Gallery has done a lot to bring in new ideas and show new types of works. And now we have the Collapse Gallery, which is a wonderful new gallery that's just started up. And the Two Rivers has been going a long time. And that's a good gallery for beginners and professionals because, well, everyone's welcome. And to show your work of art to the public is absolutely critical. That completes the creative process. You can go to your studio, you paint your picture like this, you make it the way you want to, and you let it dry and you look at it. But until someone besides your mom sees the painting and has an emotional reaction, that painting goes nowhere. So the Two Rivers Gallery gives people a chance to hang their works in public and have real public people look at them, at their works, and comment or even buy some of them, I guess.
Robert says he believes art brings people together to talk about important ideas and emotions in our world.
It gives you good things to talk about. Like, you look at a painting, you say, well, what's this about? What do you think the artist means? Or doesn't he mean anything? A painting used to be a painting of something. It's no longer a painting of something. It's just a painting. The painting itself is the work of art, not the subject that it renders, the painting itself. So I pursue those thoughts, and I do it with a lot of exuberance because I get up every morning, I come here to my studio and work, and it's just the most wonderful thing in the world. Jackson Pollock said, "I'm only happy when I'm painting." I'd say the same thing. I'm happiest when I'm painting. One of the important aspects of my paintings are my titles. I spend a lot of time on my titles.
The name?
Serenade. I don't know what it'll end up as, but to me, the title's like a piece of a poem. It really talks about your inner feelings of your painting. Like this one right here. Can I? One of my favorites, mostly it's my favorite because I did it recently. This one right here. I call it Cost of a Pure Heart. The word pure heart and the word cost are pretty contradictory. But where are we going as a human race? How do we want to train our bodies, our hearts and our minds to react to the world around us? I think these are big, important questions for artists to ask themselves.
When you walk away from one of his paintings, Robert says he hopes you walk away with a sense of amazement and joy.
What I'd like people to take away, the ideal, would be a bit of amazement, a bit of, wow, isn't that wonderful, sort of feeling, you know? Maybe not those words exactly, but the feeling behind them. And an upliftment. My recent show at Collapse Gallery here in Wenatchee, when you see that, these paintings, they're all the same size, and they're in this big room, and they have lots of movement, and when I look at them, I feel really happy that this is what I like to do. This is what I've done. And I think other people feel the happiness too. I saw a video recently where someone's dancing in front of the paintings, and because they inspire dance. I love dance. I think it's a human movement. It's one of the greatest art forms ever. If you don't want to jump around and be happy when you look at a painting, maybe you should go somewhere else and look at something else.
Coming up next, we'll visit with Jan Cook Mack at her studio in Wenatchee, an artist Robert says is an iconic Wenatchee painter.
Jan was one of the first artists I met when I came to Wenatchee from New York about 7 years ago, and I just love her. She has done so much for Wenatchee as an artist. Her paintings are beautiful, they're touching. She just does them almost effortlessly, but you see years of training and experience that have gone into her work. She's, you might say, the foundation of Wenatchee art. Think in the future when the book comes out that says, famous Wenatchee artists, Jan Cook Mack will be #1 because she's done so much for so many years.
It took a long time to get used to the different scale. And when I moved out here, there was a mountain that was just outside. We lived on Eagle Rock, and I said, well, what's the name of that mountain? And they just said, well, that's only 3,000 feet high. It has no name. So I found it really intriguing. You drive up the top of Birch Mountain Road, and so you get this view, and you wouldn't have this kind of distant view back east. My name is Jan Cook Mack, and I used to live in upstate New York as Jan Cook, so I painted a lot there before I moved out here. And so when I got married, I added Mack to my name, and wasn't sure I'd be able to paint out here, but the landscape's really pretty incredible. I lived in like the country, and I was painting, do I have one? Yeah, that one. See, the one under the window is a painting of Mount Anthony, and I was only a few miles from Bennington, Vermont. I did live in New York for a while, but it's really hard to be integrated into that system unless you live there all the time. And I was more of a country person.
Jan says she considered her father an artist, and he was the one who got her started at an early age.
Well, my dad sent me to art lessons when I was 5 at the Cleveland Art Museum. So you could say since I was 5. Then I had a teacher when I was 10, and he taught realism, so that was fun. And it was like a private tutorial where I would go one-on-one. So now when I have students, I base it on that theory that the child comes as the artist and I am their assistant, which is a great structure for teaching a child to feel confident.
Eventually making her way to college, Jan says she started as a ceramics major and changed directions with the help of her teacher and counselor.
So as a senior at college, I started making slabs, rolling out clay, and then putting various slips and colors on it. And so he became my counselor when I was a senior. I was going to be the ceramics major. And he said, you know, I really think you're a painter. And it probably wasn't a big surprise to anybody. But he said, a painter? And he said, yeah, see, you're rolling out paintings out of clay and you're painting on them with colored slips. Okay, if I switch my major to painting, what do I have to do? And he said, oh, you have to make like 5 large paintings for the show. And I said, yeah, I only have like 4 months, but I think I can do that.
She made that deadline, showed her paintings as a senior, and started her journey as a painter. After working in upstate New York, Jan made her way to Wenatchee and began painting the vast landscapes that surrounded her, often hiking and painting on site or taking photographs to bring back to her studio.
So Rod Wiegand was the first artist that I really met, befriended here. And he painted, he paints on site mostly. This one's from Ancient Lakes where I painted on site. The waterfall, see? I had this tied to the rocks and I was standing there painting the face on waterfall. You're really painting quickly because you're dealing with the light changing and you have a small canvas that you're studying the composition of it. Rod Wiegand taught me how to put everything in my backpack, like a hiking that you carry on your back. And I have a small easel like this that folds up and is compact, and that can be attached to your backpack. And then you can attach a canvas to your backpack too. So you can carry everything in. Like I've done a lot of paintings at Kolchak where basically I carried it all on my back. Painted for 3 hours and then hiked out. And when you're hiking out, I'm usually carrying the wet canvas and using it as sort of a stick to help hold me. Because you've been to Kolchak, right? Yeah. Well, I haven't been there in a long time. I probably won't go again. It's so rigorous, but the paintings that were done there are really good. Now I'll probably just drive to a spot, say in Moses Coulee, and set up near the car. Not do too much hiking, although Rod Wiegand still hikes quite a bit.
In addition to constantly creating new work of her own, Jan teaches private art lessons to children and adults. She says her goal is to make painting less intimidating.
I think most kids paint pretty freely when they're in kindergarten and first grade, and then it gradually shuts down. Somebody says, oh, that doesn't look like any good, which is sort of a rule I have here. When you are painting and you out loud you say, oh, that looks terrible. I say, no, not in here. You can't say things like that. You have to pretend that we're all 5-year-olds. You would never say that to a young child. So the student brought her mother to have a lesson, and as soon as her mother started out, she said, oh, this looks awful. It's going to be horrible. And I said, no, wait a minute. You can't talk like that. All these paintings are listening. And she, started laughing like that was so ridiculous. And her daughter started laughing too. She said, no, now, wait a minute. Listen to what Jan says. And I said, you have to put yourself in a state of mind that you're being very receptive to your painting. You have to treat it like it's alive. And she ended up doing wonderful paintings, but it took a while to train her not to yell at them.
Her own children became the subject of her paintings as they were growing up, something Jan says they somewhat tolerated but weren't shy about sharing their opinions.
I wanted to, paint them as they grow up. Let's see, I took a photo of him, but the landscape had a double rainbow during a snowfall. And I thought, oh, that's really cool, so I'll put that in. And then I don't know what made me put the pears in, I guess because of their color and light. He's 7, remember? He said, you're just going to have to do this again because everybody knows my hair's not green. See, and I said, but the green is the reflection of the light on your hair. Mom, it really looks like my hair is green and nobody's going to go for that. So I'm going to sit for you. And he sat for the one with the orchids behind it. And he sat for 15 minutes. He said, okay, I bet you have it by now. And I thought, great. So he went over and watched TV, and I filled in more stuff. And they said, would you just come back so I can work on it a little more? And so he did. He came back. And he probably sat there for, I don't know, a couple hours over a period of time. So, but you can see I got his hair brown now. I got it right.
Her work can be found all throughout North Central Washington, from reception areas and offices, even the sides of buildings. She says she stopped by the new hotel by Pybus to see if they'd be interested in hanging some of her work, and got quite the surprise.
I was just moving a show from Pybus home, and I thought, oh, I'll swing by, maybe they want to look at the art. And she showed me a big wall around the corner, and I looked at the painting, and I said, I think that's my painting. And it sort of ended our conversation, because I didn't know what to say. She said, well, I'll give you the card of our director. I said, yeah, it is my painting. It doesn't have my name on it, though. But that's the Columbia River with BB Bridge, and it was blown up huge. It was a small painting like this big, but they had made a print out of it like you would do at Costco, and it was kind of blurry and out of focus. And I thought, I can't believe that's my painting right here, and that I was never told. But it didn't have a signature on it. Like, what if all the hotels did that? Oh yeah, we have a Jan Cook Mack. It's right here, like that. I mean, I guess I'll ask them if they might want some more, or, I'll get a sign up next to it that says my name. But I just thought it was so funny.
Jan says she's continuing to teach and create new work for shows around the region, and holds high hopes for the art scene in the Wenatchee Valley. That wraps it up for today's NCWLIFE Magazine. I'm Kaitlin Hetterscheidt. For more information on Robert Wilson or Jan Cook Mack, visit their websites. Visit ncwlife.com to view more episodes on demand. Thanks for watching.